what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
This is a previously recorded episode of Making Living Better on WHKY, Catawba County, North Carolina's radio source for first-person storytelling.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Once a month, we work with Catawba County on their Making Living Better project. We're fortunate to meet some folks who reside right here in Catawba County, find out a little bit about them, whether they're making, living better, whatever they're doing. This morning, Angela Pisel joins us this morning. She's an author, resides here in Hickory. Husband Greg, children Taylor, Lucas, Gracie, and Olivia. Nice to see you this morning.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
I had an opportunity to meet your husband, a fine fellow. We enjoyed having him in the studio. Physician in the area, right?
Yes, he's a nephrologist.
Okay.
Love being here.
Tell me a little bit about, I always like to find out where people are from and a little bit about how they got here. So you're originally from where, ma'am?
Originally, my husband and I met in Illinois.
Okay.
I grew up there in a tiny town with 1,400 people called Waverly, Illinois.
Okay.
We actually met in Springfield. He was in med school, and I was a therapist at the time.
Okay.
He was an Army physician, so we moved around, lived in El Paso, Texas, Washington, D.C., and Augusta, Georgia before moving to Hickory.
Augusta.
Yes.
Got to ask you, did you ever go to the Masters?
Every year we could.
Oh,
yep.
every year we could. Every year we could.
Yeah.
Every year we get to go. So it's very, very fortunate. I want to go back just a second. When you say therapist, help me with that. I mean, there's physical therapy, occupational therapy. Are we talking about like psychologist, psychiatry?
I was an occupational therapist.
Occupational therapist. And that helps people learn how to move again and do those little
to
things.
Regain their function after a disability.
Okay. Now, are you still involved with that? Do you still do that?
I actually did that for the first half of our marriage, and then decided I just wanted to try my hand at being an author. So that's what I do now.
Now, when did you start actually writing? Do you remember the first thing that you got published? Because I remember, the first time that you're like on the air, it's a big kind of thrill. It's like, wow, that's whether you win a contest or whatever it is. And I talk to writers who say, I've still got that first clipping or that first thing that I wrote that got published. Do you remember that?
I sure do. My first thing that was published was I was in the 8th grade, and I was asked to write sports for our local sports column of our tiny little paper in Waverly, Illinois. So I played every sport that I covered. There was only 36 in my class, so it was not something to be too impressed about, but it got me my start in writing, and I realized it was something I loved to do.
What do you like about writing? What's the fun part? What it is about writing that you enjoy?
Well, I love being able to start a story and not know where it's going to end and just find out along with the reader what happens. And my passion for writing is to give voice to people who have lost theirs. So I always try and find somebody who I think I know about, but then once I start researching, I find that maybe I didn't really know the shoes they've walked in,
right.
and it's just an interesting process for me to figure people out along the way.
Now, you say to figure out people along the way. I don't know, but I'm sure that as a writer and having like a certain format, you find out about that in the outline, right? You're doing that as your outline, but as you're going through that outline and all of a sudden, I mean, I've heard this happens sometimes, no, this person's not going to do this. You just change in the middle of the night, or you get up in the middle of the night and go say, no, they're not going to do this, they're going to do this.
Very true. So when you publish a book, the publisher wants an outline.
Right.
And so I give them that, but I don't always follow that because things happen that we don't anticipate. And if somebody would have said that to me, I would have think, you're a little crazy. But when you start writing and get to know your characters, you find that they surprise you with what they do. How
real do they become to you? Because I know that some people have told me before that these people, to them, sometimes become just as real as the people down the street. And like you said, sometimes you think, but they actually do. They know their favorite color. They know what they would like for dinner. And I find that to be very interesting that you can create this person and this person can exist. And then we get to know them on a level as well. How real do they become to you? How deep do you go into individuals?
Well, my first novel, called With Love from the Inside, is about a mother on death row. And she became very real to me. I wrote a lot of the women on death row when I was researching the story. So I know what that lady made her family for Thanksgiving. I know the colors of, her prison uniforms.
Right.
I know a lot about her, and every Thanksgiving as I'm fixing food for my family, I think about this person and this character. if she's eating alone,
Right.
all those kinds of things. They do become real to you, and I know that sounds crazy, but you spend a lot of time with them in your head.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I've been told before. I find it to be very, very interesting because I find some people will say, well, it also depends on the amount of time that I don't know everybody in the novel that well.
Right.
My lead character, I do know, like you said, the colors and the smells, and that person becomes. I think it's interesting that on Thanksgiving you think of that individual, that person still, because we think of sometimes maybe, and I'm sure you do, of relatives or brothers or sisters or mom and dad. But at Thanksgiving you think about this character.
I think of the characters in my first novel. Yes, I do.
So your first novel, how many do you have out now? You had the one?
I have the one out. I finished my second. We're not sure of the publication date on that one, and I'm working on my third. My third actually may come out before my second, but we're still trying to decide that. But it's with Penguin Random House. So it's been
now that's pretty
exciting.
big. Penguin Random House. That's people work all their lives and they have this volume of work that's sitting there, and they want to get that type of publisher. How did this happen for you? Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, because people submit all the time, and they'll get an editor, and they'll put the book proposal together, and it just never really clicks. How did it click for you?
Well, I'm a lucky girl, I'll have to say. I wrote the first novel thinking no one would ever read it. So I went to a conference, New York Pitch Conference, and had four publishers actually ask for the book there. You had to get accepted into this conference, and left there with 4 publishers that were interested, and then and then found out you really need to get a literary agent first.
Literary agent, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that really took the longest amount of time. And then once I signed with a literary agent, she had it sold to Penguin Random House within really 3 weeks, probably. So
nice.
Yeah, so it was a fairly easy process for me. I feel very blessed to have it happen and all fall into place like that.
So your agent loves you, and you love your agent now because, I mean, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, I love her a whole lot right now.
I was going to say, and she's got a product that she could take in 3.5 weeks. Having someone say she's got to love you a lot too.
I hope so.
So tell me a little bit about that process. I'm thinking, I don't know, but if what we talked about earlier, and you think about that person at Thanksgiving, and you think about that character, this is truly a labor of love, and you have got to, I would think, I don't know, you tell me, that you've got to have a literary agent who's going to respect that and who's going to understand you and your character. But that's their job. They do this with authors, and they understand that part of their job. Is that correct?
Right. She's very honest, and she'll give feedback. Like, this character seems a little harsh. This character should be a little bit softer. And I always take the approach that they know their job way better than I do. So I'm very, open to suggestions about
that's great.
My writing, my character. Because I want it to put out the best book I can put out. And so, we made a few changes, and it paid off.
So now, obviously, this was you did not go from writing an article in 8th grade for your sports section up to this. What were you writing in the meantime? What were you trying to develop? What were you using to gain those chops? And what were learning on your way when you were writing? Is it short stories? Is it novels? Do you have some more novels stuck away?
This was my first novel that I started writing. I did write for some Christian women's magazines. Our third daughter, Gracie, had cancer when she was 2. And so after that process was over, I just used writing as a way of kind of processing all of that, and kind of a healing process. And so I wrote some articles, and then
so that's nonfiction.
That was nonfiction, and I had really never wrote a short story before, except in composition class in high school. So
really,
yeah.
So you go from nonfiction and maybe some articles to boom, here's this volume of work.
I did, yes.
That's very
and again,
interesting.
thinking nobody would ever read it, so there was no pressure to, to conform to any standards. And I just did it and was lucky enough to get it published.
In the industry, that's a rarity, is it not? I mean, you've probably talked to people who said, "Wow, I wrote 5 or 6 novels, or I've spent times in short stories." Is that somewhat of a rarity, ma'am?
I do think I was luckier than most, or blessed to have that process happen that way, and thankful that I get to do what I love to do.
So I want to go back for just a second. You said that you'd contacted these women on death row. The story takes place on death row.
Correct.
So you had communication with them and talked with them, right? Or I guess you didn't pick up the phone and call. I guess you wrote them back and forth?
Wrote 57 women on death row, yes. Received letters from a few. One lady wrote me several times from death row in Arizona, sent me her picture. She looked just like she could be sitting beside me at a Hickory High volleyball game. Very normal. I didn't find out what I thought I would find out after corresponding with these women. Their stories, I didn't find them to be monsters like I thought I would.
Right.
They're just people like you and I who have done horrible things in certain instances, and I wanted to find out if any of them could be innocent.
That's interesting. When we talk a little bit more about that when we come back and your impressions of their innocence and a little bit more about the book, but also want to find out about you here in Catawba County.
Perfect.
And a little bit about living here, especially with 4 children and a professional husband.
Yes.
We'll first talk right after this.
Catawba County has great people who do nice things for each other.
Catawba County also has amazing schools with teachers who make learning fun.
Catawba County is growing with new stores and restaurants all the time.
We also have lakes, which makes fishing, boating, and family time a breeze.
If you want a beautiful place to live with amazing opportunities, then come over to Catawba County.
Catawba County, making living better.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Angela Pisel joins us this morning, author, and the name of the book is With Love from the Inside. We'll talk a little bit about that. This takes place, of course, give me, if you would, just a brief synopsis of the book, because I put the cart before the horse, unfortunately. We were talking about the book, and I didn't get a brief synopsis because we were talking about the folks that you had communicated with on death row. It takes place on death row, but tell me about the book.
Right. It's about a mother on death row, and she's getting ready to be executed. And she's not had communication with her only living daughter in about 11 years. And no one in her daughter's current life knows that she has a mother on death row. So as the execution date approaches, Sophie, the daughter, finds out some new evidence that forces her to go back home and try to find out, is her mother the monster that everyone has told her that she is, or could she possibly be innocent?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we'll have to get the book to find out. But you know what I'm kind of feeling? I'm feeling a little Grisham here. I'm feeling a legal thriller. I'm hearing a little bit about that, but I'm also hearing about the relationship. And
Right.
As I read the pre-interview and got to talk, found out a little bit more about this, this really is a book about a relationship, isn't it?
It is about a relationship. There's some hard things in the book about strip searches and things that go on in prison, but really in the end, it's a love story between a mother and a daughter.
Yeah.
And it's a huge theme of forgiveness. Can we forgive? Family is just about family and reconciliation.
And so that's kind of what I got from this is that there may be some other difficult things going on and some very stark, very difficult subject matter there as well.
Right.
But it's also about this very intimate relationship between mom and daughter.
Right.
And there's something very special about that. There's something very special about a mother-daughter relationship.
Right.
So that's explored in here as well, right?
It is. I have 3 daughters and a son, and
Right.
I tried to write the novel from the perspective, if I was dying, if I knew my expiration date, so to speak, what lessons would I want my daughters to know?
Right.
In life, and what would I want them to know about me, and just about what I stood for before I died.
Does any of that come out in this book?
A lot of it does, actually. The mother writes to her daughter in a journal because obviously she can't speak with her,
Right.
and so the journal's given to the daughter. It's supposed to be given to the daughter after the mother is executed. So, yeah.
Okay. Let me. Have your children read the book?
They have read the book, yes. So, and there's a lot, they try to figure out, there's a lot of personal things that go into a story when you write it. Like,
oh, yeah, right.
I'll
what
use
part of this is me?
Yeah,
Right.
yes. And they counted them up and let me know who got short-sighted, yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So, Mom, this is me. Or I did not leave my clothes laying out like this. You've got this wrong.
That's right.
So that had to be, was it fun for the whole family you got the book? Was it fun? It's got to be. I know the answer to that question. It's got to be fun when you see your book at Barnes & Noble and you got your name on it. And the family's got to be, that's got to be a big celebration, right?
That was really fun. I had probably 200 people come to the the book launch in Hickory at Barnes & Noble, and all of my kids were around there, and my husband, and that's what it's all
day.
about. Yeah.
What a wonderful day that must have been. That's great.
It was pretty perfect.
And that, we were talking during the break, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about too, is because you're a nationally published author. author. And you've got another one in the works, maybe another one ready to hit the bookshelves.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right here in Hickory, and you could really have chosen just about any place that you wanted to live. Your husband's a professional physician.
Mm-hmm.
You're an author. You've got family. You could have lived anywhere. What is it about Catawba County? What's cool or fun or interesting about the area that you're living in?
Well, I love Hickory, and we moved here in '99, really thinking that we would only stay for a few years. We moved around with the Army a lot prior to that, and I just love the relationships that we formed here. You run into the same people, at all the events that you go to, but also, so it has that small town feel, but I also feel like it has so much to offer that, you can go different places, go to a show in Charlotte if you want to, go to the mountains, in Asheville, but Catawba County is so beautiful. I love the seasons. I, love the fall here, the changing leaves on the trees, and it just feels like home to us now.
I'm thinking, too, that what a great location that if you're going to be an author and you're going to 200 people, there you go. That just speaks to the relationships. You got 200 people who show up, and these are friends, these are family, these are folks who that you see because you've raised your daughters and your son, and you've got friends from school, and all these people like, Angela's book's coming out. We need to be there, so that had to be. But also, it gives you a wonderful opportunity, being an author, that you can live here. You don't have to live in New York. You don't have to live in Atlanta.
Right.
You have an opportunity to do what you love and pursue it right here in an area where you don't have the traffic and you don't have the difficulties, maybe.
Yes, it's a perfect place to write.
Now, tell me a little bit about your writing, because the method, because I've talked with authors before, and it's a solitary process. When you sit down and you write, that's you, and you're creating. Are you having difficulty, or do you enjoy going out to the book signings and doing the tours and all that kind of stuff?
I love to be alone in my writing room and write. I love that. But it has been fun going to different states and getting to meet different people, and everybody has a story, and I love having the opportunity to hear those stories from different people. I got an email from a man from New Zealand, actually, who had read the book, and he had just lost his wife, just lost his dog, and he's a 76-year-old widow who had read my book and wanted to tell me what a special story it was to him.
Oh, how nice.
And so things like that are what really makes the writing process worth it. Just knowing that your words have influenced somebody, in a positive way, and then they take the time to let you know that. So that's been the funnest part for me.
I've always wanted to ask this. And at a book signing, someone comes up and they say, you got like seconds. And they look at them and you say, I know a woman on death row. And you're like, whoa, step off to the side. Does that ever catch you? Do you ever hear these little glimpses? Because you have such a limited time at a book signing, but someone maybe gives you a little a tidbit or something that they offer that's important to you? Yeah,
I was doing an event in Raleigh, actually, and the event was almost over. It was at a book club, actually, and a lady in the back spoke to me afterwards, and her brother was murdered by someone, and he was on death row. So my book actually is about, a lady on death row that you don't know if she's innocent or guilty, and here she was telling me a horrific story from a victim's point of view. And I've never been a victim of violent crime, and so it's very helpful to hear their side of the story, because I can't speak to that. So that does happen, and it's important for me to take the time to hear their stories.
Take that time. Before we wrap up, because I have less than a minute, you said you want to find out if they were innocent or guilty as this communication. Tell me about that. Are they all innocent? Does everyone tell you they're innocent?
No, I do think there's a man in Oklahoma right now that's innocent and faced execution like 3 different times before they've given him a stay. But so 156 people and counting have been released from death row after spending years there because they are innocent. So it's not a perfect system for sure.
So your work is not only important because of the personal relationships there, but you're also able to bring those personal relationships to a very big and complicated topic, and you're able to bring that to light as well.
I hope so.
How very interesting. So very nice meeting you. Thank you very much. And thanks for making living better and making our community what it is today. Angela Pisel joined us this morning. She's an author, resides right here in Hickory. Husband Greg, children Taylor, Lucas, Gracie, and Olivia. One of them is here. Some of them are off at college and going on to further their education.
That's
in
right.
some cases. The name of her novel is With Love from the Inside. Make sure that you pick that up. Take a look at it. Don't just read the book jacket. Go ahead and buy buy the book as well, With Love from the Inside, to find out what it's about. And who knows, with Angela Pisel being here in town, you may find a little bit of yourself in that book. Who knows?
Thanks for listening. To find more first-person stories from Catawba County, visit makinglivingbetter.com or tune into themesh.tv each month for a new podcast.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.